The Titans are on the field today for OTAs. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. It is the final week of the offseason program. Titans coach Brian Callahan scheduled to meet with the media at 12:45. You can hear that presser live right here on The Zone. In NFL news, a free agent safety is off the board as the Miami Dolphins are signing veteran Marcus May. The Pittsburgh Steelers also have extended head coach Mike Tomlin through 2027. The Florida Panthers took a 2-0 series lead with a 4-1 win over the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals on Monday. Evan Rodriguez scoring 2 goals. The series shifts to Edmonton for Game 3 on Thursday. College baseball, the College World Series field is set with 4 SEC teams and 4 ACC teams. NC State punched the final ticket with a super regional win over Georgia on Monday. Top seeded Tennessee will start off against Florida State Friday night. For your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We got the final day of football for the spring later this afternoon. We're happy to have you. Again, Brian Callahan. How many times do you want me to say that Brian Callahan is scheduled to speak at 12:45 when it doesn't actually happen? I feel like if we gaslight people enough, they're going to stop thinking that Brian Callahan's going to speak at 12:45.
It was a lot closer. It was as close to 12:45 as it's ever been the last time they had media availability. I think he stepped up at what, Jackson, 12:50? Because we got a few minutes of it.
Oh, yeah. We got a few minutes of it before the end of the show, which was a new venture for us.
So who knows?
No, Lucas just so disappointed that he can't mail it in with press conferences while I scurry off to practice, which I will do again today. Jaquan Jackson will be on the radio show tomorrow. That's an interview that I'm going to tape while I'm down there, and we will hear from the necessary parties for the last time for 6 long weeks. Actually, is it 7 for them? Because mandatory minicamp for, I think, the majority of teams is actually this week. And for the Titans and a few others, mandatory minicamp was last week. So is there 7 off-season weeks for us this year?
So training camp starts the second to last week of July.
Typically.
Right? Like the week of the 22nd, which is a Monday, and the 26th, which is a Friday.
We don't have an official date just yet.
So that's about 7 weeks. And they started earlier with the first-year head coach.
They sure did. So, among the questions that this team has heading into the darkness that is the offseason, which is in fact summer, which is not at all darkness at all, it's quite enjoyable, but still, is at safety, where they have a couple of options, and none of them that seem particularly intriguing or particularly appealing if you had to start the season that way. Can I interest you in Elijah Molden as a starting safety alongside Amani Hooker? Because that's probably your best bet at this point if this team doesn't add veteran safety help, and there's no reason to think that they won't. I'm still of the opinion that they're going to bring in some kind of veteran help at some point this offseason, just because it's not Marcus May, the former Jets and Saints safety, who signed with the Dolphins yesterday. Jordan Schultz was first on that report. Apparently had multiple teams that were interested, including the Tennessee Titans. So it's not going to be Marcus May. Justin Simmons still out there. But if I give you those 2 options, which are the 2 options that I feel like Titans fans have been talking to us the most about, and you're already down 1, if you don't end up with the other, is it a failure? Because you've got the money to spend for Justin Simmons. Right now, it's just a waiting game. Because the question is, all right, how many teams is he currently listening to offers from? Does he have any interest whatsoever in doing a deal too much before training camp? Like, if we get to end of June, early July, and Justin Simmons is still not signed, I mean, obviously you have your answer at that point. Hop was later in the summer, but it wasn't that late. I don't think it dragged out nearly as long as the rest of us thought, because it was just really the Patriots that were in on it and the Chiefs and the Bills for bargain basement money that he wasn't interested in.
Hopkins signed in mid-July, like mid to late July, maybe the third week of July.
So pretty close to camp.
So pre-training camp, I mean, we all thought that training camp would be up and running before DeAndre Hopkins put any pen to paper. But there's just,
certainly I wouldn't have blamed him.
Yeah, exactly. There's too many safeties out there, I think, to think that they're going to go into this season with Amani Hooker and Elijah Molden as that solution. There's just so, it's not, for some Titans fans, it may be Justin Simmons or bust, and that's fine. He's probably the best free agent option on the market.
Well, that's just the name they keep hearing
that's
over
the biggest
and over
name,
and over again.
And that's the name that we thought was going to get snapped up pretty quickly when the Broncos released him in a cap relief move. But this isn't going to inspire anybody, but Jamal Adams, Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs,
yeah, but you're talking
Micah
about
Hyde.
a difference in the kind of players there. Do you know Jamal Adams is only 28 years old?
It's crazy.
That shocked me.
Yeah.
Shocked me.
And he had the highest average annual value this past season of any of the safeties still left.
Which is crazy because he's a linebacker. That's the thing about this. They have a little bit of flexibility here because Amani Hooker is a really good athlete. Like Amani Hooker can give you something in multiple roles, whether he's playing the nickel, whether he's playing both safeties, whether he's down in the box, whether he's playing center field, right? He's even got some returning ability coming out of Iowa in college, but it's not something that they've really had to lean on in the pros outside of a few times due to injury. So you do have a little bit of flexibility here. And for Denard Wilson, the question is, all right, how much do you want to move Amani Hooker out of a role that he's best suited in to cover up for some deficiencies that you may have in his running mate? If you sign a running mate who has some deficiencies, for example, Jamal Adams, you bring up. Jamal Adams is not a cover safety.
No.
Jamal Adams is a bit, I mean, when you look at the reason that the Seahawks defense has struggled, their passing defense has been a bit abhorrent. Now, you can talk about scheme. Pete Carroll, I don't think that it's a coincidence that Pete Carroll is also on his way out the door as they jettison a handful of players. Not on the way out the door. He's just moving into a different role. He's not the head coach anymore. That's Mike McDonald, the former Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. But he understands that if he's going to have the numbers advantage in coverage, that a linebacker essentially that can't cover like Jamal Adams isn't going to be much help to him other than certain settings, certain packages, right? Certainly not for the money that he was making. What was his average annual value before Seattle released him?
Jamal Adams? Over 17 and a half.
So if you look at the available players right now, including Justin Simmons and Jamal Adams, you also mentioned Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs, Micah Hyde. There's some famous names out there. Kareem Jackson, who has been in the league. Kareem Jackson's got to be damn near 40.
He is 36.
That's for any NFL player, damn near 40. So there's a handful of players, and it doesn't mean that you can't sign a lesser-known commodity or a player who's looking for some opportunity. Hell, half this roster was opportunity costs that the Titans had to patchwork some position groups together because of their cap constraints. Now, this year they don't have the cap constraints. Not really. They have as much money as as much money as any other team had to spend this offseason, and they've gone about spending it in a variety of different ways. So Justin Simmons at 30, what's the deal look like? Just some players that have signed earlier this offseason. For example, Xavier McKinney, looking at the top of the market there, at going from the New York Giants to the Green Bay Packers on a 4-year, $67 million deal. And again, that's a different caliber of player. He's 24 years old. So we're not talking about we're talking about somebody who's getting their first crack at a real contract. But Byard, for example, 2 years, 15. KB and Justin Simmons are about the same age. I think Byard's got maybe a month or two on him. But at 30 years old, 2 years, $15 million, average annual value of 7.5, and total guaranteed money, at least for Byard, from the Chicago Bears, who of course is this team's Week 1 opponent, $7.39 million. So you have that kind of money to spend. Does Justin Simmons want more? That's the question. And how much more willing to pay the we suck luxury tax is this team? Because they shouldn't suck anymore. This is a lot different roster than it was at the start of the free agency, at the start of the pre-draft process. So I don't necessarily know that they should feel that urge to overpay.
They haven't proven anything, though.
Sure. But you don't think that this is a markedly better product to sell somebody than it was 2 months ago?
Yeah, like who did the Titans pay the we suck luxury tax on the most?
Ridley.
Calvin Ridley. Mm-hmm. And that was when this wide receiver room essentially comprised of Traylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it is a much different situation now. And
you could argue Lloyd Cushenberry, too. Most guaranteed money in the history of football for a center.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a couple of positions. You could argue for and against the Tony Pollard contract because the money's not as big as it was reported, I think, initially, because I think people looked at it and said, oh, my God, he's getting more money than Derrick Henry. No, that's not actually the case.
But how bad does this defense need a Justin Simmons?
That's the question. And there's no way, like, the thing that you can least plan for or prepare for is the ability to create turnovers. I mean, you can do drills that allow you to, have an idea of a better sense of how to force a fumble or put yourself in position in the scheme to make an interception or practice the tip drills. I'm not saying that there's no way that you can't practice the ability to turn the ball over, but that's something that Justin Simmons does at a really high level. Now, are you signing him just for the turnovers? No, that's who he's been in his career, not necessarily who he might be here. I think that it would help. You have a lot of young pieces and parts. I don't think that more veteran defensive help, especially in the secondary, where you're going to have a lot of new moving pieces and parts. Now, you do have some vets there in L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie, and Amani Hooker's been around for a while. This is McCreary's, third year?
Yep.
So this is not a bunch of infants running around in the defensive back room. These are players who have gone to, and in the case of L'Jarius Sneed, won 2 Super Bowls. So you're not desperate, but it's a new scheme and a lot of new pieces and parts. And any players that you trust to be able to execute that scheme, whether that's Marcus May, Justin Simmons, or whomever else that this team might decide on, it doesn't hurt to add a body there, even if it's not exactly the body that you want, even if it's not the best body, right? I don't necessarily know that it has to be Justin Simmons, but I think if you got the money, it has to be on the table.
The Titans defense picked off a league worst 6 passes last season. 6 interceptions all year long.
Yep. I was there. I watched every game.
We were there.
I sure was.
Justin Simmons has intercepted at least 3 passes in every single season of his career since 2018.
Okay, but how much credence am I giving that stat? Because that's historical information. Now, it is something to keep in the back of your mind, but Titans fans shouldn't.
It's why he's going to be the highest paid safety on the market.
No, it's not just why he's going to be.
His body of work for the last 10 years.
The position that he puts himself in. Yes, you are correct, Lucas. The ability to put himself in the right position to make those kind of plays is absolutely a part of the reason why he is going to be probably among the remaining players the top option and going to get the best contract out of that group. But I don't think solely because he's gotten 3 interceptions in each of the last season alone, unless you're his agent arguing on his behalf, is he going to get the most money?
No, it's his body of work. It's his availability, which has been very good, save for missing 5 games in 2022. He is unquestionably the best free agent safety left on the market.
Yep.
Right? How bad do the Titans decide their need is for a Justin Simmons is up to them. And that flexibility Rand Carthon was talking about that they wanted to have after the draft to make some moves.
Yep.
That's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, and teams could start cutting players. There's the roster culling is not done. In fact, it's very much in front of us now. How late in the training camp process do you want to wait around for guys to potentially come available? It's a bit of a riskier game. If you've got a known commodity sitting out there, I think most people would just say, just give him the money. Give him the money, get it done with, get him in here, get him ready to go as soon as humanly possible. Let's have as many of the kinks ironed out by week 1 as we can. But that's not the best way to do business every time, and that's the cost-benefit analysis that the Titans are currently doing. So, could they have a safety by the end of the day? Could they have a safety by the end of the week? Maybe, but I don't think at this point that at least Simmons specifically is in any kind of rush. 615-737-1045 is the number. We got a loaded show today. Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports is going to be on with us to talk quarterback evaluation at 11 o'clock, and Lucas will have Keith Bulluck here with him while I go down to practice. So we'll talk to Keith later on in the show about everything that's going on with the Titans. The most important questions to come out of this offseason with 1 day of practice left to go. We'll get into it coming up next. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. We've got the final day of Titans practice later this afternoon. They'll be on the field in about an hour. So with that, the most important Titans questions to come out of the offseason so far. T'Vondre Sweat, it feels like, has dominated nothing but the news cycle to date. A lot of questions about what's causing him to miss time. How's his conditioning going to be when he gets back? Is whatever's keeping him out preventing him from continuing to work out in some form or fashion, to continue to condition in some form or fashion? All of these questions, of course, because he is reportedly 366 pounds. If he gets down to 355, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I have reason to suspect that he was not 366 at the time that he told us that he was 366. So that may not just be as simple as losing 11 pounds. But beyond T'Vondre Sweat, because we've talked that to death and they're not going to give us any additional information on the health of the player. They're not required to put out injury reports at this time. What are the biggest questions of the offseason? We talked safety. Safety, a big question. Who's going to play? How long are they going to let this play out? What's the cost of the players that they're interested in? And how much drop-off are they willing to account for, depending on how much cheaper the options can get? Second to that, while I was thinking about this morning, we did a segment yesterday about players we haven't heard from this offseason, but we'd like to, and nobody brought up Jeff. Not a single person of the three of us, including me, brought up Jeff Simmons. Jeff Simmons hadn't talked once this offseason. Jeff Simmons hadn't been here for the offseason program. Now, I don't think anybody's concerned about that. Like, is any one of us going to raise the alarm, the red flag, whatever the case may be, about Jeff Simmons being absent during a period of the offseason program?
Keep going.
You can understand why I hesitated there for a moment.
Everything in this building just shut down. There's a shadowy face in the window of our door. All the lights just shut off in the building.
Bird tripped the generator.
Are we on the air? Yeah.
I hope so. What
Oh,
happened?
my goodness.
What'd you do?
I think like the generator just kicked in because stuff's starting to come on.
Oh, no.
That's funny.
I started to slow up there. I assume we're still on FM radio, if not everywhere else. But if the live stream chat saw that on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, they saw the sheer terror sweep over Lucas Jackson and my face as we lost power in what is already a bat cave of a studio.
We got plunged into darkness for like 5 seconds.
Anyway, so beyond the question of did the radio station remember to pay their electric bill, do we care at all that Jeff Simmons has not been present?
Well, Brian Callahan said everybody has reported for minicamp, correct?
Yes.
Not everybody was out there.
Correct.
But everybody has reported. So are we to believe that Jeffrey Simmons was in the building, was in the facility, if Brian Callahan tells us that every single person reported?
Yeah.
Right?
Mandatory minicamp.
So doing some type of work, as is Nicholas Petit-Frere, who we didn't see out there, as is Colton Dow, who we hadn't seen, who's coming off an ACL. Remind me Jeff's 2023 injury that he was dealing with. It was an ankle.
We never got specifics. I know he had a procedure, and for 8 straight weeks, he was shooting himself up with God knows what to stay available.
Now, ankle plagued him in 2022 as well, right?
Yep.
Was it the same ankle?
That I don't remember. Off the top of my head, I don't want to speak out of turn. But it's worth paying attention to because, you know, he's talked about wanting to get his weight down and playing more comfortably. Because Jeff's ideal weight is probably under 300 pounds, right? He's not Linval Joseph in the middle of your defense, some 350-pound nose tackle. He's not even T.R. Tart. This is he's built like Superman. He reminds me at least, and obviously Roger Saffold was a much more stout player at damn near 330 pounds. But Jeff Simmons' ideal weight is probably under 300, and I think he's been working on different ways throughout the course of his career to try and get to the ideal playing weight. Now, is that specific to his ankle the entire time? No, but I think it probably is taken into some level of consideration when you talk about just how your body moves. He's not an old player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's on a second contract. You have to start taking into account differences in diet, differences in what causes inflammation versus not, whether you're Tom Brady not eating nightshades and strawberries and things like that, or otherwise, There's just certain things that have to be taken into account. So if Jeff's ankle is the thing that they're continuing to monitor in the same way that they're manage in the same way that they continue to manage Snead, is it the end of the world as long as he's playing on Sundays? An answer that we won't have until September the 8th. No. If Jeff Simmons is there for mandatory minicamp, if they're telling us that they've got full attendance, and I have no reason to think that they're lying to us at a podium, then if he's in the meetings, if he's interacting with his teammates and all these other things, then that's great. The question is, how much is T'Vondre Sweat around? Because there's a difference between reporting and then being around the building. Because I'd just be curious to know how much time they've actually gotten together. Do you notice Latham said that he called Sweat after practice the other day, which to me would indicate that Sweat's not available for him to just talk to, so he has to get on the phone and call him.
Well, he said they talked when he said that in that press conference, didn't he say we talked last night or something?
Called him last night.
Right, last night. So they were both home, I'm assuming.
Maybe so. So, I'm just saying that there is enough leaving it open to interpretation for me to wonder about the dynamics of how much time is he actually getting with his teammates. And again, how much of this they're going to disclose? Probably none at all, but it's still okay for us to wonder about questions around the offseason because all of it's going to matter whenever it is that T'Vondre Sweat becomes available, which, by the way, Brian Callahan said could be this week, but training camp is, I think, kind of the expectation right now.
The only thing we have heard in regards to Jeff all offseason, I think, is Rand Carthon telling us that the moment T'Vondre Sweat was drafted, Jeff texted him asking for his number. Mm-hmm. And he called T'Vondre and they had a conversation.
So, beyond that, do we default to the biggest question still being about the offensive line? If I go in order of, and I guess we could talk about Treylon in this too, because this is going to be a factor. But if I start with T'Vondre Sweat as the most newsworthy thing that we've been talking about, then I go to Jeff, and L'Jarius Sneed is probably 2B to Jeff's 2A because he's been out there for walkthroughs and stuff like that. We've seen him in a jersey, right? He's waving hi to us just to let us know that he's there and available to an extent, but they continue to manage his knee. We had Jim Wyatt on of TennesseeTitans.com. Jimmy said he's not really sweating it until training camp. I think that's fair for Sweat, Jeff, Sneed, any of them, Petit Frere even, guys who are managing certain situations at a time where the bulk of it is voluntary and there are 3 days of mandatory work. And as long as they reported, showed up, are around their teammates in the meeting rooms, I'm not killing them for it. But the offensive line thing, we watch it every day. We're entranced by Bill Callahan and hearing from the players about Bill Callahan. Has there been a bigger question or a bigger figure in the Titans offseason program than Bill Callahan? I would argue not. He and by extension his group kind of hover over everything that we talk about with this team. Rightfully so. Coach Mack, he's saying it to us every Friday. Hey, Mack, have you watched a different position group other than the offensive line today? Nope, staying with the offensive line because he's looking to see how they're being fundamentally built from ground zero. Have they done enough to improve the offensive line continues to be the question. We think Sadiq Charles is going to at least start out training camp as the starting right guard, giving them some depth. You're looking at Brunskill and Radens as the primary competition, with Brunskill having been the incumbent. Radens has played a lot of football out of necessity. Would you call it good? I don't think so. But how much better can Bill Callahan make guys like that? I have no idea. I can't wait to find out. But these are the kind of questions that we're asking ourselves. And then you look at the right tackle, Leroy Watson, not Leroy, but Leroy Watson, speaking last week to the media for the first time since being traded to the Tennessee Titans from the Cleveland Browns. So obviously that familiarity with Bill Callahan. Should he be the candidate to start at right tackle? Because right now, Jalen Duncan, who else are we talking about? Are we looking at any of the UDFAs? We haven't talked about them hardly at all.
John Ojukwu is a name that's come up.
He's repped a lot. I won't say he's played a lot, but he's repped a lot. And he started last year's training camp as the right tackle until an injury basically shut him down for the year.
But what will that pecking order be going into training camp? You take anything with offensive line play with a grain of salt after minicamp when there's no pads or live reps or anything. But
Less so this one, though, because of all the different things that we're watching them learn.
And somebody's got to work with the ones right out the gate in training camp. Who's that going to be at right tackle? It's going to be J.C. Latham at left tackle.
Yep.
Who's that going to be at right tackle? And if Nicholas Petit-Frere is back and ready to be on the field for practice at training camp, where does he kind of stack up then in that room? If we're talking about, what, Jalen Duncan, John Ojukwu, and NPF as and Leroy Watson?
I would like you to answer your own question, okay? Remember during training camp when he was suspended, when he had the gambling suspension and he was running with the threes?
Yes.
What did we say about him when he was running with the threes?
He was struggling.
He was struggling when he was running against the third team Titans, UDFA Caleb Murphy defense.
And against UDFAs and third teamers in preseason games.
Because he could play in the preseason.
Yes.
I don't think that this is his job to lose. I think it's probably already in that direction. Now, here's the thing that we don't know that can't be accounted for. I have no idea what Bill Callahan is going to determine to be the most cohesive unit. And that process is figured out throughout the course of training camp because they can go through the drills. You can like the way the players look in the drills. You can come in with an idea. Okay, here's my 5. And then a week later, you're like, nah, I'm good.
Is that anyone's job to lose? I mean, is there a more
there is not
wide open?
Well, from the outside perspective, I can't speak to the coaching staff, nor would they tell us if they had like a clear. I mean, we would be able to tell, I think, if they had a clear and obvious favorite. Right now, you see the bulk of the reps going to John Ojukwu. Does that mean that it's his job to lose? No, because he's a UDFA that has next to no game experience, if any. I need to look up his bio. I feel like I know precious little about him for as much as we talked about the right tackle competition.
Well, the only player in this competition that has any starting experience whatsoever with this team hadn't been out there, and that's Nicholas Petit-Frere.
Correct. So, well...
Did Jalen Duncan start any games last season?
At right?
At right. Did he start any at left?
He did start games at left. I can pull up, if you'll give me a second, I'll pull up Jalen Duncan's Pro Football Focus, but Pro Football Reference. I got to remember how to spell his name. He did play both positions, but I think there may have been injuries that pushed him over from one side to the other in game, and they were just running out of options because last year's tackle depth was, not only were the starters nightmarish, the tackle depth was nightmarish.
Okay, he has 5 starts, according to Pro Football Reference, from last season.
Duncan.
Yes, Duncan.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, remember, it was week 6 when Dillard got benched, and it was they put NPF back at right, like it was Jalen Duncan, and then you kind of wrote it out. Then I think did he start against the Bucs? No, Dillard started against the Bucs because he got just dog walked by Vita Vea, who they lined up on the edge in one of the most ridiculous pass rush snaps I've ever seen in my life. So, are those all the questions? We don't have a single question about J.C. Latham at this point. He's figured out Bertha and Olga. He's making jokes with his coach about a tackle screens at press conference. He's bigger, he's badder, he's built like the Incredible Hulk. J.C. Latham, left tackle.
He's done and said all the right things as much as you can without pads, right? So the only question we could have at this point about Latham, it would still be the question of, is he definitely going to play left? At this point, I don't think there's any discussion about, he's working at right. He could very well be the right tackle. He's probably going to be the left tackle of this football team, and we can kind of come back around when there's pads on. For me, it's what position other than safety could potentially be addressed for the rest of the offseason? Whether it's somebody getting cut around the league, an offensive lineman, is there any position that we look at that the Titans could utilize that flexibility, that financial flexibility, other than safety, which is obviously the most glaring with the most options currently out there?
Edge. I told you what I wanted for Harold Landry's birthday. I wanted Matt Judon, who showed up at Patriots mandatory minicamp this week. I think a trade for that player, depending on the compensation and how much further you want to let the contract kind of play out, because he's got a good bit of money left on the books for this year, but you can see what you've got. You can run out there with Arden Key, Harold Landry, Weaver, and Caleb Murphy and see what you got. And if it's not good enough, you can reevaluate. But I think that it's not just having that. You referenced the Rand clip of him talking about, well, we want to have some level of resource to give ourselves some flexibility, some wiggle room, should we have a Hopkins situation arise or a player that we're interested in acquiring via free agency or trade that may come with a little bit of a salary figure. And Matt Judon certainly qualifies. Now, are there other edge players that we're not talking about that could be available via trade? Sure. But he's one that sticks out in particular to me that I think would immediately, I mean, he's the best player. He's the best edge rusher that they have, not named Harold Landry, if they trade for him. Right? There's no disputing that.
No, yeah.
Jackson, you have one?
Yeah, I feel like I'd like an update on the green dot situation.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Oh, for God's sakes, really?
Green dot game,
I'm
really?
just curious. It's out of genuine curiosity.
Okay, well, why don't you do that with Keith Bulluck? Why don't you ask him that very question and you see if Keith Bulluck doesn't drop his head into his hands?
Well, he doesn't know. I'm curious how they're installing the defense. Who's calling in these 7-on-7s?
Yeah, like it is still an important factor who will start at middle linebacker for this football team. Like, just because, yes, maybe we're overblowing the green dot conversation because we're media people and we don't understand things as well as actual football people that are on the field coaching and playing, that doesn't mean that we should just dismiss any questions about the middle linebacker position.
No, not any.
When I hear Jackson ask that, I hear him ask, who's the starting Mike linebacker? And that's a very important question for this team.
Sure. I was not being dismissive of everybody. I was just being dismissive of Jackson. That's all.
Appreciate it.
This is why you've damaged him, why he's afraid to bring anything to the table.
It was very timid the way that he looked in there with the green dot. It just immediately whacked him.
Yesterday he like prefaced, what was our discussion about players you'd like to talk to? He's like, all right, you're going to think this is super lame, but Jalen Duncan, and gave a very reasonable,
that's right,
very good submission.
And then what did I do? I crushed him.
Because you have damaged this man.
It's only been a month.
Got him flinching back there.
You're so soft. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. Speaking of soft, what made you say, oh no, maybe it was Jackson's green dot question? What do we have to give away?
2 tickets to the Live Golf event in Brentwood, I believe.
No, it's in Cottage Grove.
Cottage Grove, College Grove. Through the 23rd.
The
I believe
Grove.
It's College Grove.
Okay. Very good. We have 2 tickets to the Live Golf event that's coming up in 2 weeks from now. If you give us the thing in sports that made you say, oh no.
All right, it's not even 11 a.m., but your stomach might be grumbling. I know it's already flashed through your mind at least once. Where are you going to go for lunch today? I've got your answer because in just over 15 minutes, the doors will open at every Hattie B's location, whether it's Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport. Now, at the factory at Franklin, their doors have been open since 7 a.m. because they're trying something new. They're adding breakfast to their menu, opening daily at 7. Come try some of the new breakfast items only at the Franklin location, whether it's the classic hot chicken biscuit, the hot chicken and waffle stack is so good. Of course, Hattie B's is a go-to spot for your lunch break as well. You want to skip the line? There's always a line because everybody loves Nashville's best hot chicken. Download the Hattie B's app, order for pickup through the app, skip the line, walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, head back to the office, or order it for delivery. Hattie B's is a family-run restaurant that serves up your favorite Southern foods. They hand-bread their fried chicken, cooked to order, add your spice level. Go hot or not, whatever works for you with your favorite piece of chicken, and they have the best sides in town. By the way, you get a free dessert just by downloading the Hattie B's app, so do it and head to Hattie B's today.
That's right. What made you say, oh no, this week? Sports or otherwise, we'll take it. 615-737-1045 is the number. You call that number, you give us the best submission. Jackson, what do they win?
2 tickets to see the Live Golf event at College Grove, June 21st through the 23rd.
Excellent. 615-737-1045 is the number. You call in and give us the thing that made you say, oh no, and we will send you to the Live Golf event in a couple of weeks. It's a part of the Dad's Week promotion. If you're looking for a gift for Dad this Father's Day, then you should tune in all week long as we give you chances to win Dad tickets to events, concerts, and more. This year, give Dad the best. Listen for a chance to win him prizes from our friends such as the Atlanta Braves, the Ally 400, the Nashville Sounds, and right now, Live Golf. 615-737-1045. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/Dad's Week. Mine, the Los Angeles Lakers. I could not wrap my head around the best basketball mind, or somebody who is regarded as one of the best basketball minds right now in the sport, saying no to not just an NBA job, but saying no to the Los Angeles Lakers. That, to me, is such a screaming indictment of what the Lakers brand is right now. That's an embarrassment. That is absolutely embarrassing. He doesn't want to work for the Lakers. He wants to live in Storrs, Connecticut. He wants to deal with name, image, and likeness and transfer portal and agents and collectives and all this other crap rather than deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. He told them to keep their money. He all but told him to kick rocks. And that to me is so beyond the pale, especially knowing that every coach wants to achieve at the highest level. And there is no higher level for a coach right now in the game of basketball than being a professional basketball coach, much less the coach of one of the most famous, if not the most famous NBA franchises, most legendary NBA franchises that we have, right up there with the Celtics. It's crazy to me. I get why he did it. I understand the logic. I still think it's insane, but it's Dan Hurley's choice.
He put out a statement yesterday saying, quote, "I am humbled by this entire experience. At the end of the day, I am extremely proud of the championship culture we have built at Connecticut. We met as a team before today's workout, and our focus right now is getting better this summer and connecting as a team as we continue to pursue championships." Everything was there. The money, the fame of being the head coach of the LA Lakers, a position in the NBA, which Dan Hurley has talked about as being a dream of his, as it is, I'm sure, any basketball coach alive. So what must have been missing? Dan Hurley had to have walked in there and come away thinking, this is not a place that is conducive to winning. Dan Hurley must have left LA thinking, this will set my career back, right? What other reason would he have apart from, and you know, there's familial reasons. Maybe he didn't want to move his family from Connecticut.
Sounds
Maybe
like
they love
a big
it there.
deal.
Sure.
I guess she's from New Jersey. It's very close in proximity to stores, like all these kind of things, which cannot be discounted. So I don't know that he left the Lakers job thinking that it was going to make his career worse. I mean, is it as sustainable as what he's got at UConn? Maybe not, which again speaks to the level of what he's built at UConn in not that long a period of time. And also UConn is a very established brand when it comes to college basketball. They've won titles before Dan Hurley got there, but still, I think that he would have to make a significant adjustment in who he is as a coach. You can't be screaming and red-faced in the middle of an NBA game. How many games in does it take LeBron James to passive-aggressively shoulder bump him or something like that, the way that we talked about yesterday? So again, I understand the logic. I still think it's bat bleep insane, but I'm not Dan Hurley. And Dan Hurley gets to make the decision that he thinks is best for him. And what he thinks is best for him is not being the Los Angeles Lakers coach.
This man turned down the biggest brand in college basketball in Kentucky and the biggest brand in professional basketball in the Lakers.
He embarrassed them both.
To stay in Connecticut. UConn fans have to be on cloud nine.
They found the one guy who's willing to do this. Because I bet you nine coaches out of 10 would have jumped for the Lakers.
Need to build him a statue ASAP.
Immediately.
Right? I mean, just put it up today. My oh no is a golf event over the weekend that Golf Channel was covering. Be honest, I don't know the event. Don't know what it was called. I know there was a pro-am involved, and I know that Vince Young was there. And I know that the Golf Channel reporter thought that she was talking to Vince Young, but she wasn't, and talked to him anyway. Anyway, this is the audio from Golf Channel thinking they were interviewing Vince Young at a pro-am.
So bad.
Vince Young playing this week, and he's down with Warren.
Played 6 seasons in the NFL, arguably one of the best NCAA quarterbacks of all time in Texas. Picked up golf about 4 years ago. What's the biggest shift you make going from the ultimate team sport to now the ultimate individual sport?
Now, I apologize. You have the wrong person. I'm Edward Sands over Citadel, which I'm a football coach. But the thing is, the great thing about golf is I'm not only competing against myself, but I'm competing against everybody else.
This is your first pro-am ever played, and what's the best part of being out here?
Well, being out here is a great thing, and having the opportunity to play with some professional golfers is a intimidating thing, but also a great thing.
Good luck this weekend.
Hey, I appreciate it.
God. So that is actually Everett Sands, who is an assistant coach at the Citadel, a military academy, who was playing in this pro-am. It was the Korn Ferry Tour's BMW charity pro-am, by the way. Vince Young was there. Documented that Vince Young was there, but Everett Sands is not Vince Young. And That's a tough spot.
Who failed her? Because I think somebody set her up for failure there.
I know, but I just imagine somebody patching up to the booth. Oh, we got Vince Young. Vince Young's on with Laura. I'm not sure the name of the reporter, but tough spot to be in. And the way that she just kept going, which to her credit, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do there.
You have no idea who that person is.
Do you apologize on the air? Because the moment he said, "You have me mistaken," I can't even imagine the way her heart sank in that moment on, oh no, we're on national television, and I just mistook this man for former Texas and NFL quarterback Vince Young. But she finished out the interview, and shout out to Everett Sands, who was extremely classy throughout that whole interaction. He still answered the question, even after she thought he was
so much worse.
Absolutely, but he handled it in a very, very classy manner. But that's my oh no of the weekend.
What you got, Jackson?
I'm going with the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers, the first player that comes to mind for the Edmonton Oilers, who is it for you?
McJesus.
Exactly. They have not had a forward score a goal through 2 games of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have one of the worst goal outputs in the first 2 games of a Stanley Cup final since the end of World War II. The only person to score a goal for them, former Predator Mattias Ekholm.
Yeah, Matthias.
Sergei Bobrovsky is having an incredible series so far after 2 games, the Panthers goaltender. And it is taking a hit to what we were talking about, that conversation happening around the NHL about just the value of the goaltender dropping if you have an elite offense. Value of the goaltender is pretty high right now for the Panthers. Oilers do not necessarily have elite goaltending.
615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win some Live Golf tickets. Rhett is up next. Hey, Rhett.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
We sure can.
Hey, my name's Zach. Sorry about that. We might have had a phone issue, but I'm Zach.
Okay.
I don't know the weekend. I know y'all just covered Hurley turning down the Lakers job, but that is my oh no because that's who they wanted, and it looks like now we're looking at J.J. Redick, which could be great, could turn out to be a Steve Kerr-esque type of deal. But my oh no of the week was Hurley turning down that incredibly lucrative offer. That proves, money's not everything, but it would be interesting to know all the factors of his exorbitant pros and cons list of that, turning down the job to stay at UConn, coaching LeBron, coaching a player coach, that kind of thing, turning down that dynasty, the Lakers, as one of the greatest franchises in sports history. That's my oh no of the week. Why wouldn't he take that?
Thank you for the call, Rhett. 60 seconds on the clock. Let's go to Chad quickly. Stay on hold so we can get back in touch with you if you win the tickets. What you got, Chad?
Greetings, gents. My oh no moment of the weekend. I normally go on vacation. It's kind of nice to watch French Open or Wimbledon. But my oh no, I actually said it out loud. Novak Djokovic goes down with a knee injury. Did not extend his 24 majors. And when it happened, I was like, oh, no, man. I was kind of bummed about that. But hopefully he'll come back, given his age, maybe a little iffy, to continue on with his major wins.
Thank you for the call, Chad. All right, boys, pick.
Chad. For the Novak Djokovic.
All right, Chad is going to the Live Golf event. Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports going to talk Will Levis coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans will be back on the practice field in a few minutes for the final day of OTAs. Titans coach Brian Callahan scheduled to meet with the media at 12:45. You can hear that presser live right here on The Zone. Also, the Titans announcing that they will host the Seattle Seahawks for joint practices throughout the course of training camp. Coming up in August, they will practice at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park Wednesday, August 14th and Thursday, August 15th, leading up to the preseason contest at Nissan Stadium between Titans and Seahawks. Around the NFL, a free agent safety is off the board. The Miami Dolphins are signing veteran Marcus May, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have extended head coach Mike Tomlin through 2027. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 is upon us. We won't screw around because Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports is good enough to make some of his time here for us on the show. He wrote about Will Levis and why he has the arm and the surrounding talent to make a big leap in 2024. Sports.yahoo.com is, of course, where you can read all of what Nate writes. Is this the first time you've been on the show?
Second time. The last time you made fun of me for using coach speak too much.
Surely that wasn't me.
And you go, man, you sound like Vrabel right now. And I thought I would never get invited back. But here I am. It just took a few years. But yeah, I the coach, essence has worn off of me, and I'm fully media now.
Well,
so,
one of you still has a job, and the other one does not at this point in time. So we will see if we cannot avoid that for our buddy Nate Tice, who is here with us. So how much did you enjoy watching the Levis cut-ups? Because I feel like the Titans are one of those teams that, of course, have always enjoyed you and Mays' work on the Athletic Football Show. I know you're doing a lot of great things exclusively with Yahoo now. But anytime you get late enough in the season where you just have to start eliminating teams as far as who you're going to watch and who you're going to pay attention to during the season, because, of course, as teams become less relevant, you start to direct your attention elsewhere. The Titans are one of these teams. So was there anything that you were looking for or learned about Levis that you didn't necessarily pick up on watching the first time through and then forgetting that the Titans were anything at all because they were terrible last year?
Because I've become a full-on sicko, and now not only the NFL season, but I focus on the draft. I've kind of been exposed to Levis now for 3 seasons, his 2 years at Kentucky, and now his rookie year at Tennessee. And watching him, that was what I was more curious to see. I was peeking him throughout the season when he played the Falcons game, which I call just a mortar fest. Like, he's just launching things down the field, and it was working out great. I was like, hey, this is fun. But then just peek. I would say during the season, I watched maybe 2 games on all 22, which is like truly studying, not just TV copy. The Dolphins game was the other one. And then now this is the time period where I can do my studies. I can get in my lab. No one's bugging me about some draft quarterback 4 for the draft or anything. So I'm watching all these guys that are entering their second year at the quarterback position, and I was a little more optimistic about Levis, but I did know that he had some negative sides, holding the ball maybe a little too long, take some sacks, maybe a little too tough for his own good at times. But I got to say, after doing a full-blown study, watching all those starts on the second half of the year, I'm more bullish on him than I expected to be. I see a guy that can be, at the very least, a solid starter, but especially with the high-end traits that he can get hot. Like, he does the things that you need to do at the quarterback position now, which is pushing the ball, explosive plays, scramble a little bit and extend a little bit. And, I actually was surprised by his accuracy. Was a little better than I was anticipating. I thought he was able to progress pretty well. Like, he had a pretty good understanding of the offense. So it was he was an older rookie. He still was kind of this weird thing where he's still project-y. It's kind of this weird disconnect with him, or dichotomy with him. But man, I came away a lot more optimistic about Levis. And then also looking at what the Titans have done this offseason, I think us in the national sense are kind of going, oh, the Titans, they're going to reset. And honestly, I kind of liked what they did. They have a decent defense at the very least. I would say a good defense at the very least. And then they just added offensive pieces. They added Bill Callahan, which I don't know if they got the hometown discount, I don't think. But, that helps too. but add another offensive lineman, J.C. Latham, and Lloyd Cushenberry, and Calvin Ridley. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, still had another year or two in the tank of good play at the very least. And Tyler Boyd's a nice solid starter. So it was just one of those things where I take a step back, looked at the whole big picture, studied Levis, those 5 or 6 games I studied them, and wow, I'm liking where the Titans are at way, way more than maybe I was at 4 months ago.
Famously, they did not get a hometown discount on Bill Callahan. I saw that Brian told Schefter on his podcast this week that there was 0 hometown discount.
That's amazing.
For the best offensive line coach in the league. Not only that, but how much it costs to bring all of his equipment. Have you ever seen the kind of drills and equipment that he brings that he's patented himself?
Yes. Him, my dad, Dante Scarnecchia. They kind of have some similarities with what they teach. They're obviously from the same thing, but I know Callahan was huge on the sleds, right? And he has his own kind of custom sleds, right?
Yes.
Like how they weigh over. Yes. Yeah. All the good O-line coaches want to do the sleds. They don't want to do anything else. Sled work is the key because you're working on your hips and everything. So he's a master for a reason, man. He's worth the hype and worth the money and worth the first round pick they gave him because I love J.C. Latham too. I'm so glad they end up with Callahan. That made so much sense to me.
Okay, so you talked about, and in the piece, sports.yahoo.com is where you can read Nate's deep dive on Will Levis and what he likes about what the quarterback has around him heading into this second year. Of the boxes that they did check, and they did check quite a few, which was the most important for where Levis is at in his development? Because I maintain that Lloyd Cushenberry is the most important, non-Bill Callahan division, because I think Callahan may be the best. I think it's Lloyd Cushenberry. Your thoughts?
I was going to say Callahan, but then Lloyd Cushenberry would be the player. That's where nothing can help a young quarterback more. Everyone wants to talk about receivers. They already have DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is a good safety option, even at 32, good solid option. A veteran center that can slow it down for the quarterback, that can take things off of his plate pre-snap, usually what helps some quarterbacks kind of like take a chill pill to kind of calm down a little bit and really just focus on stuff post-snap and getting their jobs done. I agree with you. I've always liked Cushenberry. His rookie year, I think PFF had him as like the lowest rated offensive lineman in the league. I thought that was just the stupidest ranking I've seen because I was like, this guy's smart. He's big. He's good. And he's developed into a really nice, good player. I'm glad they paid him because I think a good center has an exponential factor, a boost effect on everybody around him, not just the offensive line, but the quarterback and even the running back too, for making their jobs easier as well. So I agree with you. I thought Cushenberry was a fantastic one. Figuring out who plays right tackle will be my biggest question. Sure. I think everybody knows that, but I'm with you on there. That I think Cushenberry plus Callahan they're going to really, really help take a load off and lift the floor up of the entire offense.
At Nate_Tice is where you can follow him, where he does great breakdowns, great tape breakdowns, and did some on Will Levis. I want to start with this one against the Bucs because that Bucs game was a nightmare for a great many reasons. I'm sure you witnessed the horror that is the Titans' offensive line at multiple moments throughout the course of the season, not the least of which was Vita Vea being put on the outside against Andre Dillard and winning like he was the best edge rusher in football in one of the most humiliating snaps I have ever seen a left tackle take.
Bad.
But
so bad. I couldn't get over it. I had to tweet that play because I was just like, no. I was like, what was that?
I mean,
it was like a speed rush.
So like it's funny now because the nightmare is over and I can't believe he got another job in Green Bay.
Tragedy plus time equals comedy. It's the classic equation.
But I think I guess before we talk about this specific snap in the red zone that I want to talk about with Levis, which is also hilarious for a great many reasons. Yeah. How difficult was it to evaluate him based on the offensive line play? Because, Nate, I have to imagine that by a number of different metrics that anybody would evaluate offensive line play, that this was the worst pass blocking unit certainly in the sport last year.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely bottom 3 from what I've watched. I'm watching Bryce Young right now too. Carolina's offensive line wasn't much better, so I'm getting all the good ones right now. What kind of helped Levis and maybe why I was more optimistic on him coming into the league, even if he was an older rookie, was that at Kentucky, especially his last year, the offensive line there was horrid. And he showed off his toughness. He showed off trying to get balls off and throws off in these tight pockets and crazy windows and everything. And I actually was like, maybe this will help him translate to the NFL. And I think it did in some aspects where he was like, I'm used to getting hit. I'm used to throwing from a tight pocket. And I actually thought that's where Levis's kind of some of his qualities showed up because he has such a quick motion, such a tight footwork where he doesn't need a big platform to throw. So it was again, you have to find the plays you can extrapolate from. So it's like, ooh, okay, there's a little pocket movement there. The NFL's hard. It's good. You're gonna have injuries every week. You're not always gonna be the better team. Most of the times you're gonna be even. And the fact that Levis can perform in that when it's never gonna be worse probably in his entire career with one pretty solid receiver, and that's about it. It wasn't bad. And that's why you're trying to extrapolate the good things that come from that. You just mentioned when he was able to have a clean pocket. Is he progressing? Is he making mistakes from there? Is he finding checkdowns? So the times that you do see those glimpses of the good plays, the clean plays, there might only be 8 to 10 of them. You try to extrapolate from that. But even when it was muddy and seeing the throws that he was getting off or trying to throw balls into tight windows, that's where you can see some positives too. This is why I know I'm on a AFC South podcast, but why I was pretty optimistic still about Trevor Lawrence after his rookie year. It was like, even in this bad, and he's only thrown for 160 yards, there's a lot of good because of the pocket movement, because of the timing, the accuracy. And I still thought that Levis did the same thing where he was mitigating some sacks and some bad play that maybe others wouldn't be able to do. So even through the bad and the muck, you could still find some silver linings with it. And I think poor Levis, but for the last 2 years, he's kind of had to do it a lot with the offensive lines in front of him. So that's why I'm bullish that it's like, well, if it's cleaned up in front of him, and man, when he's got time, he lets that thing rip. So maybe if now instead of 6 to 8 clean snaps, he gets 12 to 14, that's a lot. That could be very dangerous for an offense. So again, that's where you can take some good things from bad situations.
How many quarterbacks have you seen with that kind of velocity on that compact of a throwing motion? Because he is insane to me for that specific reason, among others. Yeah, that combo with the quick throwing motion in person that I've seen, Jeff George is the only one that comes to mind. He was with the Vikings when I was a kid. That's the only one that really comes to mind. And I actually think sometimes he has a little too much arm arrogance, where he maybe waits a half second to let that thing rip. And it's like, and he can get away with it. It's fine. Not a lot of guys can, but he's one of maybe the 6-7 guys that can right now in the league. But it's like, maybe that's another area where I thought for growth, where it's like, maybe get that ball a half second quicker. And that way the guy gets a little bit more room to work, anticipate just a little bit quicker. But no, it's excellent. I try to emphasize that in my article. It was like, this is an excellent an arm talent with a tight motion, consistent motion, tight footwork, all those things. Those are hard to teach and hard to do consistently. And he does. So every throw is available for him. I'm sure Titans fans have seen the ball, you guys don't have a roof yet, but the ball is going to touch the roof at the new stadium. He can launch that thing. So but I thought the last coaching staff did a decent job of letting him do that and letting him push the ball. But it's cool to see it kind of show up in the drop back stuff, because his room for error is a lot greater than others in the league right now, it's saying something. This is a lot to work with. So I thought of your article and your breakdown the other day, because we're going to talk about this snap that you broke down at Nate_Tice on Twitter. They look like they're at about the 7 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the red zone. It's an obvious passing situation. I'm not sure the down and distance based on the cut up, Nate, but he threw a pass at practice. They were doing red zone drills the other day so hard that bounced off a player's hands, bounced off the turf, and then cleared an 8-foot fence into the lake that sits behind the practice facility. And I thought of this very snap because surely to God, Chikakonkwo had to have broken at least one figure trying to haul this pass in. I said he looked like the, Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, when the toady gets his finger cut off by the boomerang. That's what that felt like to me by the feral kid. That's really what that throw looked like to me. But that's where everyone thinks the arm strength stuff is just launching the ball 80 yards or 70 yards and everything. That shows up maybe once a game, maybe. And the arm strength comes up in the red zone. So I'm glad that you're bringing up that clip, because that's what opens up. That's arm strength. The red zone is all about timing and fitting into tight windows. And you do that with having arm talent or having ridiculous anticipation and sense of space and spatial awareness. So that's where, again, Levis has traits that you can't teach. So that throw to Chig, I thought, I'm just going to call him that because, but throwing it there, that route requires arm strength, because it's called, I know it as pay dirt, which is tight end gets right to the goal line and the quarterback has to let it rip, because as you see on that clip, Levante David and I think Devin White are squeezing on it, and he gets it there before those guys even can react. I've seen guys with good arms throw that. Derek Carr, who's got a pretty good arm, we threw that against New Orleans back in the day. He threw it, and those guys close way quicker than the Tampa Bay defenders were. So again, that's what opens up for him, downfield stuff, but then the red zone too. It's like, that's a weapon. That's something you can use to
get throws that maybe only a few other teams can dial up for an offensive staff. So again, there's two arm strengths. There's thrown at 80 yards. There's thrown it through a wall. Levis has both, which is exciting, I think.
Sports.yahoo.com is where you can read Nate's piece on Will Levis and the great tape breakdowns that he does at Nate_Tice. So the Dolphins game that nobody saw that the Tennessee Titans won on a Monday night because they turned it off thinking that the Dolphins had it in hand. And yet Levis and basically DeAndre Hopkins led them to one of the more ridiculous and the biggest upset by point spread, I think, in the NFL last season. When you were watching that tape and the comeback, what throws specifically stood out to you? Because there were a couple in there that just kind of left me double taking in the press box, making sure that I had seen that correctly.
At the end of the half, I think it was, he had a couple bombs to Hopkins. One was just an incredible adjustment. But that's the thing. When you get a quarterback that pushes the ball like this, these receivers are talented. When you have a really good receiver like that, I would say a top 20 receiver at this point in time, you need a quarterback that gives them chances. Yeah, it might be a 50-50 ball, but hey, 50% of the time that can work out for us. The throw that stood out to me in that game, I want to say it was in the second quarter. It's a true drop back pass. That's what I want to see from Levis more is how does he operate when he's not using play action, where that kind of puts some training wheels on offense, limits the routes and everything, helps out the protection as well. They'll still use that because of what I know these coaches do. But I thought there was a drop back pass in that game where it's a 3-by-1 concept, where three receivers are on one side. And actually, it's a 1-by-3 where the tight end Chig is the lone receiver. He runs a backside dig. On that play, the Dolphins are running a variation of cover 6, which is cover 2 to the 3 receiver side, and then quarters, cover 4 to the backside, to the tight end side. And on that play, the backside safety is taught if the 3 receiver, which is DeAndre Hopkins on his play, if he goes vertical, he has to cover and help him out. Like he pushes over, push. There's various terms for it. What quarterbacks are taught, and this is, I would say this is like a 201, 301 level read, is you read that safety, and if he pushes over, you fill the void with the backside dig. It's a tougher throw because NFL safeties can recover much more in college. But the fact Levis nailed it, what he ID'd the safety. As soon as that safety pushed over, he resets and just throws that dig, puts it right on money, tight window, nice first down, I think like 14-yard gain. That might have been the throw that got me more excited than any throw that I watched Will Levis throw, because that is a real deal progression, real deal straight drop back. I want to say it was 2nd and 7, straight drop back on a passing down, and he performed in flying colors against a defense that was playing really well at that time before they started getting hurt. So I thought that throw, more than even the bombs and the crazy throws of DeAndre Hopkins, that was the throw that got me so excited. I was like, okay. That's good. That's good that's getting sprinkled in. The true drop back quarterback stuff on top of all the trait stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to blame Tim Kelly and how much the playbook had to be condensed because of the offensive line situation. When you have when you have to help your tackles that way, like it's really on every damn passing play, every drop back, it is impossible to accomplish at least the full breadth of what I'm sure Tim Kelly would have liked to implement with a player like this. But I do like the idea of Brian Callahan, him in what basically sounds like they're just bringing the Bengals system to Tennessee. Tyler Boyd said as much. His role is expected to be exactly the same. Working out of the slot, you'll have Hopkins as a true X and Ridley as a very versatile piece who you can deploy in a variety of different ways. I know when Robert Mays talked to Callahan at maybe owners' meetings, the discussion of Ridley and the Jamar Chase mold in this offense came up. How many answers does this offense give the quarterback? And it's just a matter of how quickly the quarterback gets to the answer that's provided here when you watch the tape of the Bengals offense.
What opened up the Bengals offense more than anything, and this was in the 2022 season, was they started pounding the rock out of the shotgun. They were chucking it. When Joe Burrow play point guard, throw it all over the yard. And then defenses were like, screw that, we'll just run cover 2 against you. All right, see if you guys can keep doing that. And what the Bengals did, and this is one of the coolest things that any team did in the whole NFL the last couple of years, is they were like, all right, we're going to stay in the shotgun. We're going to just pound the rock. You're going to run those 2 high safeties, light boxes, 5 yards of Joe Mixon, 6 yards of Joe Mixon. So I know we're excited about the passing game, but this is why you bring in Callahan. This is why you signed Toby Pollard, even if he is kind of a little boom busty running back in my eyes. To add with Spears is you need that, because defenses will just play soft boxes and not load up the box, and they'll just double cover those other guys. They'll run cover 2, which is essentially putting help over those outside receivers. But the thing is, Callahan has already gone through those issues. So they've already have the auxiliary answers, all the secondary answers, the change-ups and everything already kind of pre-made, which is nice. Plus, again, you have to mention Bill Callahan, who's going to emphasize running the ball. So I think if they're going to be in a heavy 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver looks, it's going to be more, it's kind of dink dunk, jab, 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 huge haymaker. That's this offense. It's run the ball, check down, short throws. And then you dare the defense to single up DeAndre Hopkins and single up Calvin Ridley. And then you take your chances there. That's what the Bengals their formula has worked to. Joe Burrow, just nickels and dimes. They run the ball. And then once the defense start crowding up or they start single covering or they blitz, boom, that's where the big play happens. I trust Levis can hit the big plays. I trust these receivers can get those big plays. This is a perfect offense for Hopkins. With Ridley, it's interesting. I'm glad they signed Boyd because Ridley's best off the ball. He's best moving around. He's a Z, not an X. He's best he's the flanker, not the split end. He likes move him inside and out, move him outside, move him inside, motion him into the slot. The Bengals found a lot of success recently doing that with Jamar Chase. At first, it was just outside, and they're like, hey, we got to open this guy up. They're just going to run cover 2 against him. That's why I'm excited to see, because I think Ridley would be perfect in that type of role. The big question on all this is, can Levis be that kind of safer quarterback? Be the guy that's kind of hitting singles, getting on base, rather than just be a 3 true outcomes kind of guy and just hit home runs and strike out. Like, he has to get on base more. So I think he can maybe do it, but I've not seen him in an offense that asks him to do that. So you're extrapolating again. So I think the explosive plays will be there. This offense is going to find them, but it's going to be about those shorter throws is what's going to really be key to this offense, because otherwise defenses are just going to dare them to just, hey, we'll hit 12 of those. We're fine with it. All right, we just force you to a field goal. That's fine. That's what defenses will probably dare them to do, especially with that receiving talent. That's just the natural answer.
Oh, sure. As long as I get him a couple of plays a game where he's red-faced screaming and hunting big plays. That's all, just for the entertainment value on Sundays, Nate.
Crank it up to 11 about 4 or 5 times. That's great.
And then Hopkins there to back him down again the way that they did all last season.
I don't know. Levis, he's not a perfect player, but I'm telling you, I'm more optimistic about him. But the thing is with him is even his bad plays are fun. It's like, at least he's fun.
Truly.
There's something to that. Like, there's so many quarterbacks I've seen out there that are just so boring. And it's like, yeah, that's a fine answer, but you're not bringing anything more. And, it's blocked up for 4 yards. You're getting 4 yards.
Why are you attacking Titans fans this way, knowing that they just watched 3 or 4 years of Ryan Tannehill? You know what you just did there, Nate. You know what you did.
I know, but those guys, and it's, what quarterbacks have to do is they have to chase big plays. They have to. Defenses are fine when you nickel and dime. They want you to do it. That's what's fun, is Levis does that already. It's easier to rein that back in than get someone else to go like, hey, push the ball a little bit, please. Like, please push the ball. Levis is fine doing that. It's now just getting kind of the singles and doubles. So I don't know. I did not go into this article, into this study thinking I would be this high on it. And I'm not saying, Super Bowl, MVP, all this stuff. But it's fun. I think it's just a fun place to launch from. No pun intended. This is a fun, I think, year one experiment. And I think they're going to surprise more people than I think where we're at right now in June, because I feel like they're an afterthought for a lot of us in the national scene.
A fun place to launch from. It's like this man's a writer. Words at Yahoo Sports, sports.yahoo.com. You can follow him at Nate_Tice. On the socials. Buddy, I know you can't see us, but it's good for us to see you, and it was good to catch up with you just briefly at the Combine. We'll have to do it again soon once we figure out what the hell this offense is going to look like and a little more reality here in the coming months.
That would be nice. Yeah, I know. I say this all right now. It's easy to be this optimistic in June. We'll see in August. We'll see in September how this is all going. Well, then you bring me back on in October and you said, hey, we're supposed to be optimistic about this.
we call it battered Titan syndrome around here. BTS. It's a bit of a disease. So you've done your part to alleviate some for the fan base out there.
No, Titans fans are great. They're always great to me on Twitter. I think I was the only one watching David Long a few years ago, and so they appreciated that. but thanks for having me on, Buck. This is a ton of fun as always.
Absolutely, buddy. That's Nate Tice with Yahoo. Again, sports.yahoo.com. You can read the great piece that Nate wrote about Will Levis there. Keith Bulluck is going to be on with us later in the show, but coming up next, where's Big Jeff? We'll talk about it. QC Kinetics. They are here to help you because it is the most important time of year to have that full range of motion. And you can't do it if you're dealing with nagging joint pain in your shoulders, knees, back, or hips. Don't suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics, so call them today. They're the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. I'm talking lasting joint pain relief with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics advanced treatments harness your own body's ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue so you can run, walk, hike, play golf, and move again pain-free. QC Kinetics is under the leadership of former orthopedic surgeon Dr. Mitchell Shinecup, who is a true pioneer in regenerative medicine. Their advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility. So, stop putting it off, take action now, and live your best life in 2024. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. be there in Dallas, Houston, and Austin, Texas as well, too. You can get the breakfast menu at BNA. I'm flying out. We haven't talked about Slay's wedding at all this week. We have not at all because the two of you, I'm leaving you at home. I'm taking Bert with me. It's going to be a terrible idea. The idea of the buddy cop-esque vibes that me and Bert in Los Angeles at Ron Slay's wedding is going to have. I'm not mentally prepared for it. I hope he comes dressed as corn again.
I mean, Grace will be there to break it up a little bit, so it's not full-blown buddy cop, but I am going to have some very, very serious FOMO in missing Slay's wedding. This is one that I desperately wanted to go to, and I'm very sad I'll be missing. So very much dreading you guys coming back Monday and telling all your fun stories.
So, long story short, there is a Hattie B's at the airport if on your way out to Los Angeles for Ron Slay's wedding. You want to grab a honey butter biscuit with pimento cheese and chicken. Woo! And the hot chicken and waffle stack. Unbelievable.
So is this going to be like a 104.5 The Zone hangover reboot?
Well,
if so, I hope you're the one that gets lost.
that sounded so genuine. I'll be your Doug. Okay, so who's going? It's Slay's, obviously. It's Slay's wedding, so Ramon is going to be there. Bert, Dawn, Brent, and me. Who's likely, we should put this on a poll, who's most likely to get the drunkest and get, there's a bonfire on the beach the night before the wedding. So I assume Bert's not even going to make it to the wedding. I assume he's just going to get heavily intoxicated. The only way we'll be able to identify him out among the waves is because there'll be a little puff, a little chimney of cigarette smoke while he's floating on his back trying to communicate with dolphins or something like that. My money's on Bert. Bert can't be trusted in large social settings. I would anticipate he has the hardest blackout among the people that I just listed.
I could not disagree less that he can't be trusted in the way people gravitate towards Bert. Like, you are looking forward to this wedding because I imagine, look, Ron Slay is a Tennessee basketball legend. There's going to be some big names, and I bet you can't wait to schmooze with some big name people. You can't wait to get in there and say, yeah, I was just having a beer with John Henderson at Slay's wedding, right? You can't wait to be able to come back next week and say that so you'll get fined.
Sure.
When in reality, what you don't realize is...
Like doing last night, the Middle Tennessee Sports Awards with Grant Williams. Find me. Thank you.
Though Grant Williams was there?
Mm-hmm. PK Subban was supposed to do it, apparently backed out.
Okay. I mean, that's great. Grant didn't go to high school here, so I'm just a little...
No, he went to high school in Charlotte. Yeah, yeah. There was what? It was lovely to see Grant. There was a lot of Tennessee fans in the crowd. Great. There was some Tennessee...
but they're very happy to see Grant.
Tennessee athletics commits there last night, so don't dismiss Grant Williams. Shame on you.
What I think you are not prepared for is how much...
downplay my fine.
Is how much more interesting Bert is than you, and how much more entertaining and fun Bert is to be around than you.
Oh, no, I like that.
And how much more those people that you are wanting to schmooze and bump shoulders with are going to be gravitating more towards Bert.
No, I have defense mechanisms in place to kneecap Bert. Bert is a very easy person to undermine. So if I feel like he's outshining me, I have various methods, like the voice that he uses when we go to the gas station liquor store by my house. That is something that I will bring up in conversation that will very, very quickly make Bert less funny. 615-737-1045 is the number. So, because Nate Tice was on at 11, we detoured our team preview. We've been doing one team a day, except for Wednesdays, because Wednesday's at 11 o'clock. Dumbest thing in sports. Except Wednesday at 11 o'clock tomorrow is Plaxico Burress, former NFL wide receiver. He's going to be on the show now, working for Fox Sports. Thinks a lot of the Titans wide receiver corps, so we're going to talk some more ball with Plaxico tomorrow at 11. Meanwhile, team series, Broncos. We're going to talk about them coming up next. Apparently, Lucas left out one of the main competitors in the quarterback competition in the poll question, so I'm being Jared Stidham. So I'm being
please.
What do you mean? No, he didn't do everything right, which is what we're going to talk about. The Broncos quarterback competition and why it matters for the Titans coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We're fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So, why do Tennessee Titans fans care about the Denver Broncos? Well, I'm going to tell you just that here in a second. But as a part of our team previews, we've been looking at teams around the NFL, whether we're buying or selling their offseason, whether we are considering them pretenders or contenders for a Super Bowl championship in 2024. So, the Denver Broncos, as convoluted and complicated an offseason, well, really not that complicated. It's pretty cut and dry. Get Russell Wilson out. Okay, done. Eat $38 million en route to getting Russell Wilson out. Okay, done. I would have fired the general manager that gave him that deal. George Payton is still in his job. Whatever. Sean Payton is there as the head coach with a good deal of power, and now he's reset the quarterback room. Jarrett Stidham remains. Zach Wilson acquired via trade, and they draft Bo Nix out of Oregon with the 12th overall pick, a move that was a bit unexpected, certainly higher than most people projected. But to hear people around the league tell it, they feel like Bo Nix is going to make it because of who he landed with in Sean Payton. That's something that I've heard reliably from a bunch of different people who are much smarter about the X's and O's and quarterback development than I am. So I defer to them on that and say, all right, we'll see. Sean Payton got a quarterback with the 12th pick. Broncos have been in quarterback hell since Peyton Manning retired. If Zach Wilson ends up the odd man out in the competition, it may not be that big of a surprise as they try and salvage the former second overall pick. They lose, however, Lloyd Cushenberry, who has been a damn near a 16-game starter, I think, for every season that he has been in Denver since 2020 when he was a full-time starter as a rookie. He comes, of course, to Tennessee with the most guaranteed money that a center has made in NFL history. The rest of their offseason has been interesting. They trade away Jerry Jeudy, and the Cleveland Browns, they get a 5th and a 6th round pick back for Jerry Jeudy. The Browns, who they trade Jerry Jeudy to, immediately give him a $20 million a year contract. That was a bit of a surprise to me. They signed Titans legend Josh Reynolds to a deal to bring him into the wide receiver core. They add Matt Pert, a tackle, Lil Jordan Humphrey, a wide receiver, and they basically signed some depth players at safety and defensive tackle because, of course, at safety, they let Justin Simmons walk, who is the object of many people's desires in this offseason. Are we buying or selling the Broncos offseason in the AFC West?
Selling. There's nothing about this team that is inspiring to me. If I'm a Broncos fan, there's nothing about this team that gives me a ton of optimism for the future. And I like Bo Nix fine. Like, I think Bo Nix is a fine prospect coming out. The way he revived his career at Oregon was really impressive. And he had a dominant offensive line in front of him. And Dan Lanning and the staff that he put together put Bo Nix in every position to succeed. And he took full advantage of it. He was, I saw his numbers flash on a screen yesterday. I can't remember where I was, that ESPN was on somewhere. And they were just talking Broncos offseason and had a few mini camp clips or OTA clips of Bo Nix throwing a football around, and they just flashed his regular season statistics or his final season at Oregon. I mean, over 4,500 yards, right? 45 touchdowns, like 3 interceptions. Crazy numbers. Bo Nix was phenomenal, but he's the only thing that I can be optimistic about with this team. And I get that Sean Payton still has a lot of respect around the league, but it's not enough for me. It's not enough to be inspired about the Denver Broncos that Bo Nix, the last quarterback taken in the first round, is paired with Sean Payton, who, for being honest, hadn't really done anything with the quarterback for several years.
It's been a while.
So,
who wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer in Drew Brees?
I'm selling.
I am going to buy because they had to get the Russell Wilson thing off the books. You can't move forward until you move on from that terrible, terrible decision. Now, Sean Payton knew, taking that job, that he was going to have some say-so as to whether Russell Wilson was his quarterback or not. The person who gave Russell Wilson that awful contract and did that terrible deal to acquire him from the Seattle Seahawks with all the draft capital and all the solid players that Seattle continues to win football games with, George Payton is still in that job. They finished 8-9 last year. Did you know that the Broncos finished second in the AFC West last year? It's pretty crazy. to think about.
Yeah, I mean, Chargers fired their coach. Raiders fired
Vegas
their
was
coach.
8-9-2. The only tiebreaker there is because they finished with the same winning percentage. The only tiebreaker there is the points for. Denver scored more points than Vegas did last season. I'll buy because I buy that Sean Payton is still good with quarterbacks. I don't think Russell Wilson depreciating that way should be pinned all on Sean Payton, but I do think it's fair to criticize Sean Payton for coming in saying, being quarterback guru and then not being able to do anything with a quarterback making $40 million a year.
Well, there was some improvement with Russ last season.
There was improvement in the style in which they played.
Yeah.
Russ was not an improved. Russell looked better in the scheme that they were running. Russ is still a depreciating asset as a quarterback. The athleticism has definitely fallen off. Now, I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders for obvious reasons, if for no other reason than they play in the AFC West, and I think it's, Chiefs and everybody else. I bought the Chargers as a contender. I probably shouldn't have. I should know better about the Chargers just as a franchise. They seem to have a bit of a curse about them. But it's the Chiefs and everybody else in the AFC West, and I can't justify Denver even as a wild card team. There's way too many missing pieces and parts because it's a solid but not great offensive line. It's a solid but not great defense. They drafted Troy Franklin in the 4th round out of Oregon, the wide receiver, who I like, but I don't think that's enough to make a legitimate difference in year one. So that's kind of where I'm at with Denver. Now, I think that the Titans getting Lloyd Cushenberry matters a huge deal for Will Levis and hurts the Denver Broncos as much as any of the offseason attrition that they had. And we'll talk more about that Levis situation, Levis and Cushenberry together probably tomorrow at this point.
So you are buying the Broncos offseason.
Buying the offseason.
Are they contenders?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I mean, what about this wide receiver core?
Troy Franklin, Josh Reynolds, and
Marvin Mims, Tim Patrick.
Marvin Mims, solid player. Tim Patrick keeps getting hurt.
Cortland Sutton is
a good player.
Is wide receiver 1 in Denver. Brandon Johnson, Tennessee Vols legend. Brandon Johnson, the former UCF transfer. But Lil Jordan Humphrey, remember him? This is a kind of a who's who of names that have just popped up, along the way.
They're all going to be. Somebody said we were talking about Corey Davis the other day in a group text that I had, and somebody said he's going to make a great answer to a trivia question one day. Lil Jordan Humphrey is also one of those players.
Like the cliche of just the guys sitting around naming old football players. Just
guys being dudes.
How guys will do that. I mean, that's a very true thing, right? Of guys just sitting around naming. Oh, remember this guy? Oh yeah. What about this guy? Lil Jordan Humphrey, Tim Patrick, Brandon Johnson, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, I feel like all
Titans
fall
legend.
under that umbrella.
Hey, listen, Josh Reynolds has been good for everybody but Tennessee.
Sure.
All right? So, you're sleeping on Josh Reynolds, and Josh Reynolds did nothing but catch touchdown passes in Detroit, which I did not have on my bingo card.
If things go bad in Denver this season, and let's say, just for argument's sake, that there's some flashes there with Bo Nix.
Okay.
But everything else
bad
pretty much remains about the same.
That general manager should have been fired already.
Yeah, what does that discussion look like around Sean Payton in the offseason?
It's not about Sean Payton. It's about the meat shield of a GM that he kept in power so that if things do go south, they have somebody to fire that's not him. I very much think that's a bit of a situation that we're going to see play out. Coming up next, Tyler Boyd had an appearance on Sirius XM where he spoke about how much further he feels like Will Levis is going to be able to come along with this new offense and these new skill players in place. You'll hear a portion of that interview coming up next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans are on the field for the final day of OTAs. Titans coach Brian Callahan is scheduled to meet with the media at 12:45. You can hear that presser live right here on The Zone. In NFL news today, a free agent safety is off the board. The Miami Dolphins are signing veteran Marcus May, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have extended head coach Mike Tomlin through 2027. The Titans announced today that they will host the Seattle Seahawks for joint practices in training camp Wednesday, August 14th and Thursday, August 15th, leading up to a preseason contest at Nissan Stadium Saturday, August 17th. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So Tyler Boyd did an interview talking in part about Will Levis last season and how they're going to help him rely on some legitimate playmakers in 2024. Tyler Boyd, the newest Titans wide receiver to join the team via free agency, signed that 1 year up to $4.5 million deal, went on SiriusXM and talked about a variety of different subjects. So, Jackson, let's hear a portion of that interview whenever you have it ready, because I think there is some truth. There is a lot of truth to what Tyler Boyd is saying here, and married with the analysis that we just got from Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports in the second hour, I think you can understand how it is in a little more detail that Brian Callahan is going to make life a hell of a lot easier on his second-year quarterback. This was Tyler Boyd via SiriusXM.
You know, I know he could take hits, and he's an athlete. You know, he's kind of tall. But again, man, I know he can go out there and play football. And another thing, I know he kind of probably went out there and did too much. But now he got playmakers, he got guys. So I think he can cut it back a little bit, relax, and just rely more on his playmakers, you know. But at the end of the day, he's still learning the offense as well, you know. So he's still trying to get the timing with certain routes and just knowing what side to stay with and what not to stay with, and just get the ball out in timing. Coming here with Ridley and Hop, man, I'm kind of familiar with being in a room full of playmakers, you know, guys that just can go out there and just flat out play, you know. But I think the most important thing for the whole group is just being unselfish, you know, guys just making it more family thing and not just being selfish, man. And I think once we bond and get that chemistry, I think things will just go so much smoother.
So that's Tyler Boyd speaking about the wide receiver core that he's now part of here in Tennessee, how it relates to his previous experience in Cincinnati, and how they're going to help Will Levis not do too much. That's the whole point of the season, is seeing if he can win without doing too much. Didn't you kind of take that away from Nate's interview with us? He needs to find ways to take the 5 or 6 yard completion, take the check down to the running back. Don't feel the need to showcase that cannon. Remember him coming out in the pre-draft process, Levis? I've got a cannon, and I can't wait to show how to use it, or I can't wait to show it off, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he was talking about the strength of his arm. And sure, why wouldn't you? He can make throws to every part of the field. There's not many players anywhere. There's not many people anywhere that have that kind of arm strength and talent with some degree of accuracy that I think is still in question, but not an outright. Like, I wouldn't put Will Levis's accuracy as a mark against him yet. There's been not enough of a sample size to say that Will Levis's his accuracy is an outright problem. Something that could stand to be improved, but not a problem right now. He's not putting the ball in danger so often, even though some of the interceptable passes were dropped last year.
The problem is, the only times the Titans offense found success last season, it felt like, was when Levis was playing hero ball.
Sure.
For lack of a better phrase. So how long does it take to get that coached out of him to where if everything works with the moves that we've made here and the running game is competent and we have different options with our running backs and the offensive line and different weapons at receiver, different places to divert attention from the defense, I mean, it's the first time since 2021 that Will Levis has the potential to be in an offense that is humming because of all of its pieces and parts, not because he and maybe one target are the only good things about it. It was kind of the situation with Kentucky in 2022. Kentucky's offense, a lot of it that year was Will Levis, Barryon Brown. Last season, Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
So how long does that take to get kind of coached out of him to where this is going to have to be a collective thing? That's how this offense is going to have to work.
An interesting couple of comments in the chat where you can interact on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. By the way, you can also call the show, 615-737-1045, if you have thoughts on Will Levis and the idea of doing too much. How can he be more of a game manager? It's not a slur. It's not a stigma. It's a necessary part of playing the quarterback position at the highest levels. Patrick Mahomes found out how to manage games this year. Josh Allen, I think, is still a work in progress, but you can tell as recently as the playoff game that they appeared in. And I know they gave that game up late, but Josh Allen was noticeably more efficient in that game after the offensive coordinator change was made, and that's something that they have to get through to Josh Allen, right? Hero ball. A comment on YouTube from Professor Existentialist says, I don't want to see hero ball unless Levis absolutely has to. Carson Wentz relied on hero ball his first 2 years that he got hurt, then he got hurt, and we all see what happened to his career. Well, I don't think it's quite as seamless as that because Carson Wentz did, throw himself around a little bit. The play where he got crunched between, I want to say, two Rams defenders. Was it the Rams were still playing at the Coliseum, I think, in that game when the Eagles went to L.A. because that was a battle of the first and second overall pick. At the time, Wentz was on an MVP trajectory. Rams playing at a high level. Carson Wentz was diving, if I remember correctly, for the goal line, got his knees crunched essentially and popped his ACL. So yeah, there's some of that. You want to make sure that he's protected because if he feels like he's pressing and he's helicoptering between two Colts defenders or, taking a brutal hit because a defensive lineman has picked him off and he's going to run it back to the end zone if you don't make a tackle, well, he's going to run it in there anyway because he's 300 pounds and you're like 185, bud. So there's some of this or a lot of this with Levis that's fair. Boyd is saying, and Boyd is working with a different kind of a quarterback in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is the definition of cool. Is there anybody who more seamlessly gives off unbothered as an NFL quarterback than Joe Burrow? When he's asked what's the famous lines like when he's asked what the window is for them, he says the window is my entire career without missing a beat, right? Is that kind of person to where it's calm, cool, collected at every level of the game, smoking cigars after the LSU title, whatever the case may be, having dealt with the adversity from Ohio State to LSU, seemingly getting it out of the way pretty early and then coming into the league, unchanged.
No, there's not. There's nobody to that level of calm, cool, and collected like Joe Burrow.
Because Levis has a bit of high strung to him, for sure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think you see that manifests in a couple of different ways.
He's talked about that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he's talked about that awareness of not getting too high, not getting too low.
Sure, but I'm talking about the specific examples of it, where you see him try and rocket a throw into Chick because he's pressing when he has to put just a degree of touch more on the ball, even though there's few quarterbacks that can make that tight window throw between two closing defenders to a tight end is sitting in the end zone. He may break his fingers in the process, but you understand. It's not just the red-faced screaming stuff. There's elements of his game where you see it impacted as well. That's the hero ball type of thing. Because he was pretty incredible in 2021, to your point, when he had the best version of a team around him that he's had. But he's more than a kind of player who's just going to rise to the level of the team around him. He's got the kind of traits that should be able to elevate the team as well, which is what I think we're kind of caught up in the balance of or seeing how he's going to balance it himself. He doesn't have to do it in year two. He doesn't have to do it all in year two. Mahomes is how many years in the league?
2016 draft pick. Right?
So 8. I would say that it took 6 years for Pat to play, to be the best version of a quarterback that we've seen him be, beyond just the spectacular.
2017 draft pick, excuse me.
Okay. But still, 6 or 7 seasons it took the most talented player, or one of the most talented players at quarterback we've seen, really refine his skill set and play the kind of quarterback that makes it the full picture. So Levis doesn't have to do it all in year 2, but he does have to learn these things incrementally. And I think a huge step is giving him playmakers that he can trust so he doesn't feel like he needs to press at any given moment. And I think that's what Boyd, without taking shots at players who were previously here or who are still on the roster, I think that's what Boyd's kind of alluding to. Yeah, we're just going to put him in a situation where he doesn't have to press all the time.
And it seems like Boyd has kind of taken some ownership in that and being the one to communicate with Levis. We've seen that coming from the practice field a ton. He talked about that with us. It's almost like he shoulders a bit of a responsibility coming from understanding he's the only one in this offense that comes from the Brian Callahan offense in Cincinnati. And he talked about that with us, which you can go back and watch on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page. And he's talked about that with SiriusXM, and it's showing on the practice field. It doesn't seem like anybody has more player-to-player communication with Will Levis on the practice field than Tyler Boyd, right?
Ridley talks a lot to everybody, but
Sure.
but specific to Levis, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that Tyler Boyd does a good deal of communicating. Now, part of that is because he's probably heard the comments from the quarterback before they even signed him. Can't wait to talk to this guy about the offense. Can't wait to learn. If you're a wide receiver, hearing that, hey, baby, that's job security. That's good for you, too. Not just good for the team, which is what you're working towards, but that's great to hear if you're Tyler Boyd.
And is there a young quarterback, let's just say a quarterback in his first or second year in the NFL, whether he's going into his rookie year or going into his second year, that is surrounded by as much veteran talent as Will Levis at receiver? Like even last year, C.J. Stroud had Nico Collins, who's still on his first contract, and Tank Dell, who's a fellow rookie and a fellow draft classmate. And you look around, Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman at this point is a veteran, but Alec Pierce, a younger player. Like it's a unique
Alec Pierce, I think, was year 2 last year.
It's a unique situation for Levis where all three of those guys are what, 28 or older?
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, 29 or older. Boyd and Ridley are both 29. Hopkins just turned 32.
So
last week.
It's a unique situation that Levis is in.
Kevin Leonard says Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams has, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good comp.
Roma Dunze, is a rookie who is a top 10 pick and needs to make some sort of impact.
But close as the Bears. But I think to your point, there is not at least a starting 3. If you went 11 personnel on your wide receivers, I don't know that there is a quarterback on his rookie contract that has that level of depth and knowledge from 3 different players, and 2 of them who they just added.
Because even Burrow early on, Jamar Chase was his college teammate, right?
No, Tyler Boyd's talked about this. Tyler Boyd was learning the offense at the same time as Joe Burrow.
Right, and Boyd was going, his 4th, 5th year when Burrow was a rookie?
This is year 8 for Tyler Boyd, so that's probably about right.
But Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase are all very close to the same age.
Grady on YouTube says, is it dumb of me to still want T. Higgins next year after D-Hop contract?
He's not showing up to minicamp.
Nope, he's not getting fined because he hadn't signed his 10.
That's right.
Is it dumb of you? No, but I think it's, one season at a time, please. D-Hop's contract has yet to expire. All right, I'm headed off to practice. Keith Bulluck's going to join Lucas coming up next. I'm going to tape an interview with Jaquan Jackson, the rookie wide receiver and returner who's looking to make a splash on this roster. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Titans on the field for OTAs. It's the final week of the offseason program before everybody breaks and then reconvenes out at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park for training camp. Buck Rising has left. He is headed to practice, where Brian Callahan will meet with the media, scheduled for 12:45, select players as well. You can hear all of that a little bit later on here on The Zone. But first, we are joined by Keith Bulluck, Titans legend, who we haven't talked to in quite some time, KB. Appreciate you being here. Hope you're enjoying your summer.
Definitely enjoying my summer. So far, so good. How things been with you guys?
Oh, you know, KB, same old, just taking glaring overreactions to every mini camp rep without pads on. Like, how much are you following mini camp, OTAs, the offseason program? Is the interest any higher because it's a first-year head coach and there's install and new things, new players being implemented than it maybe normally would be in year 4 or 5 of a program?
Yeah, not for me per se, but I would definitely say for fans that are definitely diehards that are into every single move, because at the end of the day, something that I really noticed is that, and we'll have to see this year, but it seems as if, Rand Carthon has had to do a lot. He's still doing makeup work for like Isaiah Wilson, or, a couple draft picks, I should say, that kind of fell through. So now, the Titans have been kind of behind the 8 ball the last couple of years. So it's pretty cool to see the Titans as an organization move in a different direction. To me, it kind of seems like when you speak offensively, you already know they're coming out with a 3 wide package. I don't feel like that's been a thing probably since Warren Moon and the run and shoot in Houston. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty cool. You have a new defensive coordinator who is from the Greg Williams football tree, which is pretty cool for me because I'm familiar with that, being that Greg Williams was my defensive coordinator the first year and kind of my rookie year. And it kind of, molded my mentality and gave me molded my mentality and kind of established and let me understand what playing in the NFL was about on the defensive side of the ball from a very, very good, legendary Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. So, there's a lot of different things that go into it. But as you started it off, man, there's a lot of different stuff and fluff that doesn't really have much to do with anything unless you are a diehard.
Well, there's just a few things that are so easy to track, right, with 7-on-7s and quarterbacks. You could say Will Levis went 3 of 8 on this day, went 7 of 9 on this day. So we kind of have those tangible numbers or figures to look at, KB, on receivers dropped X amount of balls. Here's who Levis threw to. But on the defensive side, that's obviously a lot harder to do with no pads, no live reps throughout the offseason program. But just from everything that you've seen and heard from Denard Wilson coming over from his time as the DB coach in Baltimore, you bring up Greg Williams, and Blaine Bishop has talked about that on here too, that when he listens to Denard Wilson talk, he hears Greg Williams without the expletives. Do you feel like you've gone through the same thing when you've heard Denard Wilson being introduced, and just now that we're seeing that play style be implemented, that kind of back to front building out of a defense as he comes over from Baltimore?
Well, you know what? To be quite honest, I get to listen to all the shows on the Zone when I'm in my car, but I've never caught Denard himself. I've heard yourself speak about him. I've heard the other shows speak about him, but I haven't caught that. But I'm excited for that. That's kind of I look forward to that. Just to kind of see how his defense flies around, the mentality, because it's one thing for a coach to speak about it, but the players have to buy in, believe, and make that happen. And from the talks of players that have played for him in the past in Baltimore or in other places, coaches that have been around him, I hear really, really good things. And I've actually met Denard when he was in St. Louis. So I definitely, and it's great to see him come full circle to get his opportunity to run and man his own defense. So I know that, even with Callahan, man, these young coaches getting these opportunities to, run their own show. So it's a a lot goes into it for them, and they want to have a good showing. So with that, I think everything's coming back to your original question about preseason. Yes, for OTAs, for these coaches in these positions, these new positions for the first time, they want to go out there and make sure that their message is heard. Like, I've never been in a regime change. I've gone to a new team, but to have to come in and get 50 to 70 guys believe in what you're teaching without even it really been seen before. They haven't had an opportunity to play against any competition or anything, but it's an interesting dynamic, and it's very important for those guys that are there now to really lock in and get an understanding of what the coaches want. It's also vice versa. It's important for the coaches to be specific in what they expect and learn their players, and vice versa for the players learning the coaches.
Keith Bulluck, Mr. Monday Night, with us on 104.5 The Zone. So you mentioned, KB, that you never went through a regime change. Jeff Fisher, your head coach the whole time in Tennessee, and then you go to the Giants, where Tom Coughlin, obviously a longtime head coach in New York. But you did go through defensive coordinator turnover during your time here. So what was that like going into an offseason program where Jeff Fisher's still the head coach, but you have turnover in terms of who's calling the plays defensively, and you have to start to instill that familiarity with personnel and with the scheme? How much of an adjustment was that? Like, was that mini camp process any different for you, given that you'd have a new defensive coordinator than it would other years?
Lucas, you know how to ask the good questions without even trying.
Don't give me too much credit.
Nah, for real. Honestly, that's a good question because, playing with Jim Schwartz for 6 years or 7 years, however long, it had to be 8 years, he was my coordinator. It was down to a science. The year before we were a top 5 defense, and then you get a new coordinator coming in. And obviously, as a new coordinator, you want to put your own style, your own twist, implement your own things. But that was that wasn't a fun year just because the coordinator was within the room. Chuck Cecil, he was our defensive back coach, and I just think that him wanting to put his own twist on things just so we do things differently, I think that kind of backfired a little bit, But I think in the situation the Titans have now, where you have guys like Big Jeff and, people in the back end that have played for, a different system, this is like refreshing because the whole thing has changed. I think in my situation, it was just a coach was given a promotion, and it just wasn't the right move in my opinion, and a lot of my teammates' opinions. But I think in this situation, it's totally different because Denard's bringing in his own system, and he's telling you what he's going to do and how it's going to work. He's not tweaking what was already left. I think the guys that are playing, and also you have new players. You have fresh bodies like that have made plays. You got Snead coming over. You got the defensive back. You got the other corner, coming from Cincinnati. So now you have competition in these rooms. You have, 2 wide receivers, top-notch wide receivers. So also what they're doing is developing competition and, even at the linebacker position, you know what I mean? You have these rookies coming in and everyone's saying this guy's going to play, this guy's going to play. But then you have guys that have been here just like, hold on, wait a minute, I'm still here, So it's a lot you can take from these mini camps. And also, I wouldn't read too much into certain things as well. When you talk about passing completions and stuff, percentages and things of that nature, they could be working on something particular, a particular passing routes or passing, combinations against certain defenses and certain looks. And, it could be the first time them actually even trying anything. So I wouldn't go too far into passing efficiency and those things. But of course, we want our quarterback to be accurate. Definitely we want the receivers to catch the ball.
But who's going to wear the green dot, KB? That's been the hot button issue of this defense all offseason. They draft Cedric Gray in the 4th round. It's all we talked about. And then you tweeted this about a month ago. You said, I'm so confused, at KBull53 on Twitter, by the way, if you're not following Keith Bulluck. You said, I'm so confused. Since when did wearing the green dot on your helmet become such a big deal? So could you just help us out from your perspective, sitting back and watching everybody climb all over each other with this discussion, us included, right? Like people on the radio, Titans media, Titans fans. Can you kind of contextualize for us the importance of the green dot and that player in the middle of the defense and maybe how we're overblowing that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of being overblown in the sense that when it came to the rookie, I believe his name is Cedric Gray.
Yeah.
That he's gonna be the green dot guy. That was making him, kind of special. And like that's not the case. All that is, if he even wears the green dot, whoever wears the green dot, they're simply taking the call from the defensive coordinator on the sideline or from the press box and simply saying it to the defensive players. So it's just like, Coach Mack put you through it and you did great.
I don't know, KB. I botched one word in there. I feel like an X play right up the middle happened.
Hey, yo, you know what? Sometimes, a lot goes on in those huddles. And at some point that microphone turns off, and if there's too much going on in the signal caller's head, he might actually miss the call from the coordinator. So he would have to know what to do in that situation. I really wouldn't put that on a rookie, but you did good. You got to be clear. And most of the time, the guys, can anticipate the call anyway.
Do you have anything like that from your career where something might have gone wrong there in terms of the communication, one word getting lost in translation, and even how the most minuscule of details on the play call getting filtered through down to the field can affect the outcome of the play?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why, I wouldn't put that. I would be very hesitant to put that responsibility on a rookie. I think Amani Hooker, to me, fits the bill, or even if if Jack Gibbons even gets the call and is starting, I will put someone that has more experience and, is more in touch with the defensive coordinator, defense, and the scheme. Because I feel like a rookie, you're still trying to figure out where to line up, what to do in certain downs and distances. There's so much going on that, to call the play before you even know where to line up would be kind of tough. So I think, generally someone with more experience that can give alerts, within the call, such as, like I said, an Amani Hooker or, Gibbons, someone that more experienced linebacker, because it'd be like, it's 3rd and 3, watch the hard count, or it's 3rd and long, play the sticks, meaning, let's keep everything in front of us, certain things like that a rookie might not be in tune to. But hey, you never know. It could be, we've seen it before.
Keith Bulluck on with us. But that's the thing, KB. I think when fans think about what they want out of their Mike linebacker, for the most part, that's the first thing they think about. Well, can he quarterback the defense, right? Can he make those calls? So if we're putting that kind of in the back seat for the moment, as far as the importance of that position, what do you want to see out of the starting middle linebacker for this football team? Because there's a competition happening there right now, whether that's going to be Jack Gibbons, whether that is going to be Cedric Gray, the 4th round rookie. What are you looking for in today's game out of that player in the middle of the Denard Wilson defense?
Well, I think that player has to be able to play sideline to sideline and be a short tackler. You see a lot of drag tacklers. And I think, honestly, as I kind of watch this offseason some football, I see that the hip drop tackle is because guys aren't running their legs anymore, through the tackle. They're just getting to the guy and trying to just drag him down. Whereas, when I was playing, it's, you run your legs through the tackle, and that's not happening. But I like to see someone that, makes plays. They haven't really had a playmaker from that inside linebacker position in a few years. So making plays is one of the biggest things I would like to see for sure.
When you look at this division, and the moves the Houston Texans made in the offseason, and now the Titans and Colts and Jags at a point where they're the ones trying to play catch up. Do you have any sort of preconceived notion of the AFC South going into the season, like probably the rest of the national media does in terms of Texans and everybody else? Just how wide open do you think this division is, or is it Texans and everybody else for the moment? KB, you got us? I think we lost Keith Bulluck. See if we can't get him back here. Brian Callahan is scheduled to meet with the media. Blaine Bishop's just walked into the studio. He sees Keith Bulluck on the screen in here. Bad man right there. Great stuff there from KB. Mr. Monday Night has been on with us on 104.5 The Zone. So we'll see if we can't get Keith Bulluck back a little bit down the road. Always appreciate the time. Man, had a good question for him too, Blaine, about the AFC South there and the hierarchy. We'll get Blaine Bishop on here for a couple of minutes. So we were talking about the green dot thing that KB is talking about on social media, about how we're overblowing it and all of these things. So he gave some good perspective on what you want out of a middle linebacker in today's game, even though the first thing I think people think about is, well, he needs to be the one to call the plays. He needs to be the most cerebral player on the defense. But with KB, it seems like it's more about that sideline to sideline athleticism to be able to combat what's happening today with offenses in the NFL. KB's back on. You're on with Blaine Bishop, by the way, Keith Bulluck.
Yeah, KB, I'm glad we got you back. I was just filling in for the great KB, man, the greatest, in my mind, the greatest defensive player in Titans history. He knows.
Yeah, I don't know what happened
before. So in totality over his career, Mr. Monday Night was the best defensive player in Titans history over the, how many years you were with him? 10 or 9? How many was it?
I think we lost him again.
Oh, my.
That's all right. We'll get Keith Bulluck again down the road.
I definitely agree with KB, which I got to play with him for 3 years. Super talented, gifted player, very smart and cerebral in his play, and that's why he was so good. And those combinations of being super athletic and super smart in football IQ is what makes great players, and that's very consistent in the National Football League. And I think you have to have a lot of that, but also the lateral quickness. He was super athletic, so he could cover as well as he could play the run and do sideline to sideline. So there was really no holes in his game that you could really point out on film to say, man, we're going to attack this. So he was specially gifted, super sharp, smart, and it was nothing that he couldn't do. He could make plays. And it was guy because he played safety. He was in college, and then they moved him to linebacker so he can get some playing time. He was there with some whole bunch of studs there at safety there. I think Donovan Darris even at Syracuse, but. So that's why he had the whole total package with his athleticism and his ability and his length. So when we got him, it was funny. I said this, and we had a pretty good linebacker crew. When he got there as a rookie, I used to say, hey, man, which one of you guys are getting benched? Because, when we got on the field, it was pretty clear that he was not only the best athlete, but he was the best player. And so they put in a special package that year. We called it Extra Backer. And he basically came in to play safety, and me and him were kind of the safeties, and he was making plays, getting pick sixes in just that package, only playing in a limited role. And I'm talking about like 5 or 6 plays with that package. So it was really interesting. When I say he was getting picked, he was getting pick sixes. And it's like, whoa, this guy's gonna be a bad man. So they found a way to find more time to put him out there even more. So he's valid on all those things. And you don't have to be the middle linebacker with the green dot. And I get why everybody thinks that, but it can be multiple, players. I remember we had Randall Groffey. He was still learning the defense when he first got there. And so I would stand in front and help him with the calls, get him faster. When you're getting acclimated to a whole new scheme and a whole new system. And then about week 3, he's like, I got it now. But he did come to me and say, hey, I need some assistance there just so, because he's doing a lot of other things too at the same time. And he said, I'm going to get it. And so he got it, and we took off after that. And he was a special talented player too. So, so it happens. It doesn't have to be the middle linebacker. It's just accustomed that that's the guy that usually has it because he's in front of everybody on a daily basis. So it should be that person, whether it's the outside, inside, safety helping. Typically, you want leaders at all position groups. So you kind of everybody kind of works together. But to me, everybody should take responsibility on offense and defense. And when you're looking to the sideline getting the signals, even the D linemen, they should somewhat know the plays to a certain extent, and basically for all their stunts and everything they're doing. And everybody should know, especially in the secondary. But sometimes you don't. You say, hey, man, we got a guy who's super special. Hey, you just look at him and give him a signal, and he goes, hey, you man up, man. So I'm sure they got some guys like that in Snead as long as he's out there.
I could listen to those stories about KB all day,
Man, KB.
especially early on in his career. Mr. Monday Night, always appreciate him joining us on here. I could listen to Blaine Bishop talk all day, but Brian Callahan is up at the podium for the final time in the Titans offseason program after OTAs. We go live to the Titans head coach.
But how is he conditioning wise, and is that any kind of concern as you take your break and get ready to come back for camp?
I'm not concerned. No, it's just one of those things that sort of lingered on him a bit. Again, don't anticipate it being a long-term issue for us, but didn't have any sense to rush him out here, not feeling perfect, and so he'll get his work over the summer. He's got a plan in place, and I'm confident that he'll execute it. So. Biggest thing for him is working still and getting in shape, ready to roll. He's obviously working, not in front of everybody, but he's here working. He's not getting the full field work, but he's here and he's getting his work in. So anticipate him being ready to roll, and we'll see what he's got in training camp.
Do you give players a program to follow for these next 6-8 weeks, or you kind of just trust them to?
No, guys there's programs available. Our strength staff does a great job. They give them a take-home program to follow, some guidelines, things they suggest they do so they're ready to roll. And the key is to not waste the work they've done at this point. Take some time, take a week or two, take a break. But you hit after July 4th, it's getting close. It's time to go. And these guys are pros and they understand that. But we give them any resource they need. Our staff, performance staff, is here every day. So if guys are in town, want to get a workout, they can come in and work. There's no regulations against that. So they've done a great job, I think, with the designing of the program and with the take-home program as well. Guys have whatever they need available to them.
Is that kind of your message to them? Like, on top of that, just making sure you're taking advantage of opportunities the next 2 months?
Yeah, they know it. They know what's coming, and everybody in football gets to. I get to about the 4th of July, and I start getting a little antsy. I can feel it. I feel the season coming. I feel the urgency start to pick up. I relax a little less at that point. But, yeah, these guys know. They know what it takes. Very rarely do you have guys report out of shape. Everyone's usually pretty much dialed in and ready to go because, they know what's in front of them. A 17-game season with a training camp is pretty daunting, and they know what they need to get ready. And the message is you've worked really hard at this point. Let's not take a step back. Let's be ready to hit the ground running when we start up in July.
How do you feel like your rookies have done during this time since they reported for rookie mini camp to the growth of them?
They've done a really nice job. The rookie experience in their first offseason is always really difficult. They're coming off of college seasons and training for a combine. Then they get into the 30 visits, and then they all of a sudden they get drafted. And there's just a lot of things that go on, and then all of a sudden they hit the ground running, and they're expected to learn football and learn new schemes and new systems and really be professionals for the first time in their life. And that part takes some growing and some learning, and they've done a really nice job of drinking out of that proverbial fire hose, if you will, and taking a lot of information. It's starting to slow down for some of them. Some of them it'll slow down as we get started in camp, and then they play that first preseason game and they realize, it's still just football, and usually by then they're starting to make cases for whatever jobs they're competing for. But it is a process for those guys, and I think they've done a nice job.
Has a guy like Judy Lolly put himself in position when training camp gets here to go compete?
Yeah, I think all the rookies, even the UDFA guys that we've signed have put themselves in position with the way that they've worked here. Their mental approach has been really positive, and so they understand that this is also, we get to training camp, it's for real. There's competition for jobs, and I don't know too many NFL football players, and these are grown men that are competing for jobs for feeding their families, and it turns a little bit. The competition ramps way up, and I think these rookies understand that. But if you want a job in this league, you got to go take it, and that's the sort of competition you have to have. And I think our guys have that mindset. They've been learning this whole offseason program, but the temperature changes when you get back in July, and it's a little more serious. And guys are really competing for spots, trying to make our team better, but ultimately trying to find themselves a job. And I think those guys are up to the task. It'll make our team better for it.
How likely is
those rookies still have some work to do either here or
on their own in the next few weeks before you come back?
Absolutely, they do. You know, you don't take it for granted. This is the first time they'll probably ever really be on their own, in the sense that no one's holding their hand over the summer. You know, there's no summer workout program. They're on their own. Everything's available to them, but they got to figure out what they need to get themselves ready to play. And a lot of them don't know what that looks like because they've never played that long of a season before. So their education really never stops this whole first year. They still have to be here for about another week, and then they'll get some time to themselves. They need a break too, but they also know that this is, it's go time in July. You're competing for a roster spot, and the expectation is you're ready to do that. So there's a lot that they still have to learn. They still got to keep studying. They still got to keep working to put themselves in that position. But so far, everything has shown me that they're up to that.
That is Titans coach Brian Callahan meeting with the media. We'll pick up the back end of that if he's still talking when we come back. Wrap things up right here on 104.5 The Zone.
Veteran, maybe to create a little competition, a little depth there.
Oh yeah, there's opportunities to add all the way through. I mean, there's time now we can still add, and then there's also another player movement at the end of the training camp when you talk about roster cuts. But yeah, we're still actively looking. We'll never stop that process. We're always looking to add players that we think can help us in the right places. So I would say that's an open-ended question because it's a constant. Our pro personnel guys are always looking to see where we can get a little bit better and maybe add some competition and some depth. So that door's always open until it's not allowed to be open anymore.
How have you outlined or kind of sketched out this offseason for Will and getting him ramped up training?
For like the summertime?
Correct.
Yeah, he's got his process. He's going to take a little time for himself, spend some time with his family, and then he's got a little trip with some of those receivers planned, a little bit of a work bonding and enjoyment trip, if you will, a chance for those guys to go get their minds right for the season. And then I know he'll take a little bit of time off of throwing just because that's usually what quarterbacks do, and then they come back in July and start ramping up probably 2 weeks before training camp to get ready to roll. So he's got a good process in place. He's got a plan for the summertime, which is good. It shows some leadership and some ownership over his process away from here, which is good. So I feel really good about his plan.
Is there a particular message you want to ingrain within him going into the offseason?
Other than what we've talked about every day, I just think for him, the most important part is keeping that urgency and tempo in how he plays. Keep playing faster, keep playing with more confidence, and that comes with more reps. I really was happy with how he progressed, learning a brand new way of playing football this year, and there's going to be plenty more reps in training camp in the preseason, and the key is to be ready to roll in September playing at the speed that you got to play at the position in the NFL. And he's improved every day he's come out here, and it's really all I can ask of him at this point is to keep getting better over the course of the summer and the training camp, and we'll be ready to roll. I feel really good about where he's at.
You've said a couple different times that this offseason has been the busiest you've ever had with all sorts of things. Do you need a little extra time this late June and July to get ready? Organize your time to make sure you're ready to go full go.
Yeah, I keep adding stressful things on top of stressful things. Our moving truck is currently packing up in Cincinnati. It'll be here on Thursday, so now I got to add moving into a house and getting my family here for the first time as Nashville residents. So one more thing to add to the list of things that got to get done. But I'll take some time. I'll take a break. But at the end of the day, I'm so focused on where this team can be and getting ready to go play football that that part's fun for me. I don't really worry about that part too much. I like it. I enjoy it. So the work part doesn't bother me. But I'll get a little break. I need one.
All right, last one.
I think it means a lot. I think that's a testament to that group. That's a group that generally has to work as one, probably more than any group on the team. Those 5 guys that are playing have to be dialed in. They got to be together. Every good offensive line I've ever been around spends a lot of time together. And so having them all here, that's just one more time that they're together. I think they realize the importance of that, especially with young players. You have a rookie left tackle, a second-year guard, a brand-new center. So there's moving parts, and the more those guys are together, the better off we're going to be. And I think they realize that and understand how important that is. So for me, it's great to see. I love seeing all those guys, all the big linemen all running around together and practicing together because that's the only way I know that you can have a good unit is the guys that spend time together. Thank you. See you guys.
All right, Brian Callahan has stepped off of the podium at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Of the stuff that we missed, I know we caught some of the pieces about T'Vondre Sweat, and Callahan kind of reiterating that he's not worried about him. What he's working through is temporary, and that he expects Sweat to be around come training camp. Also mentioned that, of course, they're going to explore moves for the rest of the offseason. And, of course, was asked about the news today that the Titans will host the Seahawks for joint training camp practice sessions this fall, or this summer, I should say, in August, throughout training camp, August 14th and August 15th. So, in terms of what came out of the practice field today, I'll take a look at some notes from Teron Davenport of ESPN, saying that Will Levis opened the 7v7 red zone drill with a touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akine. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. with an interception against Levis. Was just talking to Blaine about Jarvis Brownlee Jr. In here during the break. Not a name that we've heard a lot. The rookie drafted out of Louisville by the Titans in this past draft. Teron also with an attendance report saying that the guys that were not spotted include Big Jeff, no surprise there, T'Vondre Sweat, Traylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Caleb Farley, Tony Pollard, Sebastian Joseph Day, Cheeto Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, Elijah Molden, Harold Landry, Tyler Boyd, Chigga Okonkwo, Marlon Davidson, Quentin Bohanna, TK McClendon, and Nicholas Petit-Frere, all among players not spotted on the final day of Titans' voluntary OTA. So to be expected that list was going to be longer with the voluntary nature of this workout. Titans wrapping the offseason program today on the field. They'll get some team bonding work in on Wednesday, according to Brian Callahan. So we'll be back to talk about it tomorrow. Buck sitting down with Jaquan Jackson, probably as we speak at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. So be on the lookout for that later this week. The rookie out of Tulane. That'll be posted on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page as well. Be sure to subscribe while you're there, looking at all the great content from every show here on The Zone. No time for the polls today, but always a huge thank you to Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, for sponsoring the polls. We'll give you the final OTA takeaways of 2024 tomorrow at 10 o'clock. But coming up next, Joe Hunk and Blaine Bishop got you covered from 1 to 3 right here on 104.5 The Zone.